Now, even though you weren't taught inspiration with some of these terms, X-Files event, trance state, channel doc, okay, in my experience, when you talk about the idea of a biblical book being put together by someone other than the name on the book, like Ezekiel, and using a word like editing, it freaks people out. And they may not know why it freaks them out, but this is why it freaks them out. Because they subconsciously, or they were taught, a certain process of how the Bible came to be. And even though they may not have verbally heard, oh, the Bible was downloaded in their heads, the whole trans-flight thing, the whole X-Files thing, even if you weren't taught that way, a lot of people are taught about inspiration where that is sort of the practical effect. That's the thing that's taken away from a lesson on inspiration. So that when you talk about stuff like this, when you point out something very obvious on a close reading in Ezekiel 1, and trust me, that ain't the only place it happens. First to third person switching. I'll give you another one. In the Synoptic Gospels, now I picked the most obvious example, the superscription on the cross. Everybody knows that one. You can have, in English, the exact same words between two Gospels. And in Greek, you could have the exact same Greek words, but sometimes the writer will use different tenses. Sometimes the word order will change and be different. Sometimes the syntax, the sentence structure is different. You got the same download problem, even if you can't see it in English. If you could look at it in Greek or Hebrew for that matter, and you've got two parallel things but the content is the same, it often will differ in these small ways. And if it's dictated, if it's downloaded in a trance state, there is no explanation for that other than the Holy Spirit is kind of an impish little fiend that, oh, this will trip him out someday. Let's change the person and number. Okay. God doesn't do that stuff. He doesn't play with your minds. There's no normative explanation for stuff like that if, again, you're in the X-Files turf for how we get inspiration. Now, another thing that the X-Files view presumes is that the writers had downloaded into their brains advanced knowledge. You see, the Bible really does teach quantum physics and geology and genetics. No, it actually doesn't. They don't know anything about that. It doesn't even reference China. I mean, you go to the Table of Nations. There are lots of nations that are not in the Table of Nations that we know existed, and people were there, and all the, The Bible, the biblical writers did not get advanced knowledge downloaded into their heads. You know the most obvious way of telling that that's the case? Because if that was the case, they'd be the only person who understood what they were writing. They're the only person that went into the trance and got it downloaded. It totally undercuts the premise of communication, not with an audience that'll live 4,000 years later, but their own audience. Nobody will get it. If that's really what the text is about. It's about the Big Bang. It's about this. Look, if that's really what the text is saying to us, then us and that one guy back there are the only ones that got it. Nobody else is getting it. So that writer was a really terrible communicator. And not only that, but God was too. God should have known better. It's foreign. It assumes that we are primary over the original audience. And that's really easy for us to do because we're impressed with ourselves. Let's be honest. We're so much smarter. I got news for you. We are no more intelligent than people living thousands of years ago. It's just that our knowledge goes different directions than theirs.